I'll try to be brief, but at the same time touch upon all the important measures as per which we are trying to recalibrate the energy sector, because unfortunately I'll have to leave for the cabinet meeting, and the Honorable Secretary, who's here also and has to speak after me, also needs to go for that cabinet committee meeting that is going to start at 10:30. So I'll just try to compartmentalize and touch upon the interventions that we are trying to reinvigorate to bring in more coherence in our energy policy, and at the same time move the needle materially on the measure of energy security for Pakistan. Because one thing that the Strait of Hormuz crisis has magnified and manifested for Pakistan is how vulnerable we are to external shocks. So how is the government attending to that matter? The principle that we want to settle in this round is that petroleum has to figure in this conversation where you thrash out a national energy policy for the medium term. It cannot be tweaked at the occurrence of any singular incident. So how do you bring convergence and coherence to the policy? How does that relationship gel in with the power division, with the water division, and then how does that manifest, and how does that get affected by the demand outlook, and how does the wider economic activity impact what is happening in the petroleum division? So that convergence and the reactivation of the platform, the inter-ministerial platform of Cabinet Committee on Energy, which is headed by the Honorable Prime Minister, has been reactivated. You've seen a few meetings. I would personally, and I suggested this to the Honorable Prime Minister, that regardless of whether we have any agenda or not, this is one committee which needs to convene every 2 months to have a discussion on understanding what is happening in the energy value chain. Because here you not only have the petroleum minister, you also have the power minister, you also have the finance minister, who can sit down and see how this sector is to be sustainably taken forward. Because unfortunately, this sector in the past has been viewed from the lens of the power division as to how it can just support the energy requirements provided to the consumer through the copper network that we have. So that reorientation has to happen. And this is the platform that the Prime Minister himself will chair and try to reorientate the entire thing. And this is where we will keep them apprised of what needs to be done to keep this sector sustainable. The other thing is that every sector and every division needs to now stand on its own feet. Petroleum division cannot be a division on which you continue to load exorbitant taxation, exorbitant financial interventions to meet budgetary impacts, because the sector's sustainability is equally important. And if we have to move on the energy security needle, we have to make sure that whatever money is invested in these high-risk ventures, when you do all the upstream exploration, our Turkish friends are here. I welcome them to this conference. I believe your flight was diverted because of the weather situation. But, you know, after 20 years, this is the kind of intervention that we are bringing in with our friends under the leadership of the Prime Minister, reinvigorating offshore exploration with MADI, with PPL, with OGDCL after 20 years. So if we expect them to invest over $100 million for one well, we must ensure, we must provide them consistency of policy, we must provide them visibility, medium-term visibility, and enable them to retain their profitabilities if they strike a wet well and reinvest that to build the infrastructure. So that is the only thing that will enable us to sustainably make this sector grow. So upstream, the legacy challenges, I'll just briefly touch upon, without increasing a single rupee in consumer prices. Amir Tofail Saab is here. He's heading one of the larger of the two utility companies that we have. He can speak about this in greater detail in his address. Without increasing a single rupee of consumer tariff, after losing all the profitable customers to the national grid, after numerous interventions brought in which eroded his revenue potential, we have still been able to maintain the flow of circular debt to near zero. The legacy cost, which was there before I came in, and this was in March last year, we are working with IMF and the E&P companies in how to repay that amount. My friend Zahir Saab is here. I acknowledge the payment that is due and what the government needs to liquidate those, and we are making efforts towards that, and I own that responsibility. You don't even have to come and remind me of that. I am well aware of where it was and where it is today. So that's a government obligation. We will continue to deliver on that. So, but hopefully that how do you operationalize that will get decided in the next couple of months when the next mission comes in. And you'll see us moving in that direction, because once you get that money, only then we can expect you to deploy that capital to explore further. So that's what we are doing in the upstream, other than the exploration on the onshore and the offshore basins. In the midstream, I am extremely grateful to Khattak Saab for leading the negotiations yesterday and for providing some relief in this extremely volatile environment in terms of reduced diesel prices. The refineries stepped up to that ask. I'm grateful for that. But what we need to really get the conversation going is, why are they in such dilapidated state, and why have they not been able to upgrade to deep conversion refineries? And that is where the new refinery policy comes in, and that is where the operational flexibility comes in. So why did we not do it in the last 70 years is a debate that we can have some other day, but that policy is in field. The Secretary is locking the agreements with all of them. We will have a signing ceremony, and we will make sure that at least the future generations are not challenged in the same manner as we are today in meeting this challenge, because these things will continue to happen. We live in interesting times. So that's what's happening in the oil chain, in the midstream. In the gas sector, I am grateful to World Bank. They are helping us unbundle and reform the gas sector. How do you split the infrastructure business from the energy business? How do you inject more competition into it? How do you encourage more liquidity for the upstream sector? How do you inject efficiency optimization into the system? And that report should be coming out by the end of this month. So once that is there, it will be presented to the Prime Minister, and we will slowly and gradually move in that direction. And already, I think a lot of competition has already been injected with the support of Fahim Saab. You have the third-party access regime. Power is bringing that regime today through the CTBC, and we've had that for years. So how do you build that platform, take it forward? That is another thing that we'll definitely bring in, because the North Star remains deregulating, letting the private sector bring in the expertise, the competence to run this efficiently. We've seen this in the telecom sector, and we see how Pakistan today and the consumers in Pakistan today enjoy the lowest call costs across the country. So that is the benefit of injecting competition into this. So we'll continue to push on that front, regardless of how much hatred I am able to gather or how much popularity I'm able to gather. But I think the true measure will be how the coming generations view what we did when we had the responsibility of doing something. And in the downstream, consolidation, improving digitization, and doing all sorts of things. So which will bring more transparency, whether it be the pricing reform, And the confusion around the daily price announcement. That's not the end game. The end game is deregulating it. The prices even today are being settled on the basis of a 7-day moving average. If it must be a deficiency in my explaining this fact to the people, because my critics continue to say that it is daily price. It is a 7-day rolling price which is announced daily. So I hope people will be able to listen to this and better understand what we are trying to do. Because the entire country cannot stop every Friday when prices are to be announced, and especially when, as a petroleum minister who imports most of the molecules, cannot do much to tweak that price. So that is the end game and the direction in which we have to travel. There are many other things, Fahim Saab, that you wanted me to speak. Unfortunately, I don't know whether I've eaten up into the time of the secretary, but these were the broader touchstones that I wanted to lay before you. Secretary Saab and I are available. We've tried to keep the industry apprised and have that feedback loop in place so that we can continue to calibrate and adjust the policy as the environment changes. But the broader message is we have to review this entire energy architecture, and I need your support, and I will make sure till the time that I am here that all your genuine issues are addressed, whether we are able to attend to them in a timely or in a manner in which you expect us to move forward. I don't know, because this government decision-making process has its own benefits and its own challenges. So, but my promise is, if you convince me, regardless of what I'm faced with, I will continue to raise that voice. And Zahir Saab, your amount and the millions of dollars that the government of Pakistan owes you for years, I acknowledge that, and I continue to work towards addressing those problems. But please also appreciate that in this environment, there's not a single invoice for the last 1.5 years since we've come in that has been unpaid. We've not touched any contract. We've respected the sanctity of contracts regardless of whether I made them or not, because they were contracts made by the government of Pakistan, regardless of which government it was. I'm not getting into that debate. I own that liability. Inshallah, with your support, we will continue to attend to those matters.